Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Tuesday, the 28th of June. We're almost halfway through this year already. Who could have thought it was possible? And what a year it's been so far. There's quite a lot happening this year around the world. Some very bad and some not so bad. But yeah, life certainly is interesting at the moment. And hopefully what will be interesting for you right now is the latest Retail Bulletin Omnichannel webinar. Hello. Welcome back. This is actually part 2 of the series, and part 3 is later in the year. For those of you that have tuned in before, you'll know that I'm Darren. I'll moderate the session today. I wear various hats, including being the founder of Williams Harding Consulting, the chairman of Scrubbed, a men's skincare brand, and the chairman of Liberty, a PR business. But enough about me. My voice is the one that you'll hear the least today. I want to introduce you to the 3 people on the screen with me, and you'll be hearing all about them in just a second. I do want to remind you about the upcoming events that we've got at the Retail Bulletin this year. On the 21st of September, we are doing a live event, our HR Summit, and that will be in central London. So look out on the Retail Bulletin website for that, 21st of September. And then we're really excited to tell you about the 2-day live event that we're doing on the 8th and the 9th of November in America Square in London. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be an overnight shindig as well. So a 2-dayer with a bit of a bash in the evening, Tuesday and a Wednesday, 8th and 9th of November, the lives, 2-day Retail Bulletin Conference. And we would love to welcome you there. And then the third part of this series, the Omnichannel webinar series, will wrap our year up. Part 3 is a virtual event on the 16th of November. So mark them down for your calendars, but we particularly hope to see you at the lives on the 21st of September and the 8th of November. Right, enough about me. Let's hear from these lovely people on the screen with me. And in no particular order, Katharine, I'm going to ask you to go first, please, and introduce yourself to our audience today.
Of course, thank you very much for having me. I'm Katharine, I'm from parcelLab, and I'm our head of Global Strategic Communications. Been with the business for coming up to 3.5 years, so watched us kind of grow from that startup phase right through to the scaler that we are now. What we actually do, we're the leading post-purchase and returns experience platform. So we do branded communication, tracking pages, also returns portals, and a whole host of other things as well.
Great to have you with us. And Katharine, thank you to you and parcelLab for supporting and sponsoring the event today as well. We do appreciate our sponsors very much indeed. So thank you so much. Titus, on to you, please. Hello, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm Titus. I am the corporate development manager at Currys, focusing mainly on the UK part of the electronics business. For those who are not aware, Currys is the leading electronics retailer in the UK, Nordics, and in Greece. I've been in the company for about 8 years, working across transformation, strategy, and more recently looking at inorganic and partnership growth opportunities as part of corporate development.
Great, and welcome, Titus. Great to have you with us as well. And Alberto is joining us from a very warm Italy. So it's 40 degrees, you were saying earlier, yeah?
Yeah, almost actually, yeah.
Wow,
actually
okay.
In the middle of a heat wave. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. Alberto here from Videndum Media. I'm basically the global e-commerce and digital director, being charged for digital transformation for a B2B manufacturer, which is turning to be a B2C driven company. The company is British, although it happens that there are also some offices around the world. I'm actually based in the Italian one. And yeah, I mean, the Videndum, you probably don't have really known about it because it's called, used to be called Vitek up until a couple of months ago. But it's best known for its brands, which are market leader in the content creation industry, such as Manfrotto, Jitzo, Joby, Lowpro. If you're a photographer, a videographer, you surely have known about, heard about them.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us from hot and sticky Italy today, and hopefully you're staying cool. I just adjusted my light here. We've got some nice sunshine in London today as well, so I think London's going to be something like 26, 27 today, so not quite catching up with you, but still a nice day in the capital. That's our panel, everybody. I hope you will agree they are a stellar lineup, and we're looking forward to getting stuck into the content with them. Remember, this is all your webinar as well, so we want to get you to get involved and get the most from this session. So somewhere on your device, however you're watching, you will see a Q&A button. Please use it. It's there for you to ask questions to our panel. You're very welcome to direct a question direct to one of the panelists that you might specifically want to talk to, or chuck a general question out there. And my job as the moderator to make sure that every single question that gets asked gets answered. So let's kick off with no further ado with our panelists. And Katharine, I'm going to come back to you to start, if I may, please, as well. We're talking about effective digital transformation in this session today, but there's a wider part to the session as well. And really at the moment, everyone's talking about the cost of living crisis. And with customers being more careful in their spending with that rising cost of living, what can retailers do to really prioritize and retain those loyal customers?
Yeah, 100%. I think what's really important now is going to be that end-to-end customer experience. When we are being more careful with money, and actually what we're seeing is people being a lot more, I guess, they're taking longer to purchase. So they're looking at things, they're taking longer before they actually check out. So they're actually going to be less forgiving if the experience, once they have parted with that money, isn't up to par. So I think that's what's really important now, is to really look at how are we, what is the experience we're giving to customers from the moment they hit our website right through to if they potentially also return the item. Are we communicating? Are we letting them know what's going on? I think delivery times also are being affected by this. We all know the supply chain issues, it's all still happening. I mean, I recently ordered from a retailer that used to do same day delivery. It took 8 days for it to come. They didn't tell me that at checkout. And actually that was a really frustrating thing. I needed it for a work trip. And then suddenly my parcel arrived 3 days after I'd left. So it's a really frustrating thing now. So I think communication is what's going to really help you here. If things are going to be delayed, just tell them at checkout, say, we're really sorry, things are taking longer than usual, adjust those delivery times, and actually then upfront your customers know, I'm not going to get it as quickly as I'm used to, things are changing, and actually I can still part of that money, or if I need it quicker, maybe I'll go elsewhere, but they're not going to have that bad experience. It means they're not going to come back to you again. So yeah, basically communication is I think what's going to really help in current times.
And I guess sometimes there's an element there of a reality check for customers, as well as a bit of under promising. And then if things happen faster, the customer experience is by default better.
Exactly. I remember M&S did this a couple of Christmases ago when it was the supply chain nightmares around Christmas with COVID, and they changed, I think, their delivery promise to 8 to 10 days, but they were probably delivering in 3 to 5 days still. But what they did is say, we're not quite sure we're going to hit it, so we're going to under promise. And actually then your customer's much happier because it comes quicker, rather than kind of having to chase up. We know how much Wismo is such a drain on customer service centers. We don't want to be producing those calls. We want to be avoiding them at all times because it's just going to cost the business a huge amount. And that's where, yeah, your accurate delivery promise and communicating if things do inevitably go wrong is going to be really important.
Yeah, it's vital, I think. And I think the key underline of your answer there is just communication. And I think people are stressed, things feeling a bit heightened at the moment. Even this morning, just having the news on in the background makes you feel kind of anxious. There's so much going on in the world at the moment, but the cost of living thing is really punching through in terms of all of the communication we're hearing. And I think, yeah, a bit of honest communication and under promising could be a really good tip for our audience today. So thanks for kicking that off as well. I'll come back to you shortly. Take a sip of something nice. Titus, I'm going to come on to you, if I may, and talk about that kind of integration of the digital and non-digital world. So what are some of the key considerations our audience should be thinking about when it comes to integrating those online, offline customer journeys?
Sorry, just unmuting.
All right.
Yeah.
I was just about to say you're on mute and you beat me to it.
Yeah, I thought I pressed it, but yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's not really new news to say like, oh yeah, customers expect a online, offline integrated customer experience. But I think as a customer of many retailers, I'm still surprised to see how many retailers across the UK don't have a seamless experience. And like the main issue I find from a company perspective is, well, one is the customer experience, but two, it's the information that you have on your in-store customers. And so if you compare an omnichannel retailer with a pure play online player, the pure player has got significantly more information. They've got less ability to personalize because they don't have the staff and the training that can do that. They need technology to have like online personalized journeys, which adds an extra layer of complexity. But the getting more data on your in-store customers is very important in order to have a cohesive online and omnichannel in-store journey. And therefore you need technology and programs to capture that on offline customer data. Now, there's lots of little companies and ways to capture data through cameras or through membership programs or through basically clienteling solutions. You can do lots of little things, but unless you've got a solid foundation, then you'll basically be stuck for having the single view of the customer across all channels. And so it really starts with solid foundations, having basically a single system or a very integrated system as the core infrastructure for all customer touchpoints that integrate online, app stores, contact centers. And so when the customer calls into one of them, they know that customer, they see the customer history, they know all the touchpoints that they've had. You start talking to a customer in store, and you've had, like, once you've identified that customer, you can basically see that they have a propensity to buy Apple products instead of anything else, and therefore you basically talk to them about that instead of anything else, like try to sell them the Samsung product that's currently on offer. And so that basically, like, information, but well applied technology in order to make use of that information. I think there's definitely a disconnect there with a lot of companies trying to basically just absorb as much information, but they're not really clear as to how they're going to use it. And at least from a Currys perspective, what we've been focusing on is really just getting the core really done properly, and then everything is built on solid foundations.
I think absolutely, and I think Currys, obviously you are a significantly sized organization, and I think some of the struggles that smaller organizations have is wading through that sort of data that you've talked about, and how do you slice and dice it and even begin to deal with the amount of data that you end up with, and also the investment and money that's required to be able to do some of the things that you've talked about as well.
Yeah, I think for smaller organizations, I think the key thing is just because you're starting from scratch, like, just set yourself up for success. Because you don't have a lot of legacy infrastructure, you can actually just use all of the existing platforms and just pay a smaller amount for it, and then basically build on that through lots of software as a service, basically providers. And there's plenty of basically AI and what is referred to as AI, but sometimes it's just fairly smart algorithms. It's that can take that data that you're collecting and basically serve a particular purpose. But you should always start with a question in terms of what are you trying to do before you start collecting the data, rather than collect the data and then see what you can do with it. That's the much better approach and much more specific, and has a better outcome.
Great, thank you, sir. And I'll come back to you shortly as well. If you've got a question for Katharine or Titus and anything you've heard so far, do use the Q&A button. But for now, I'm going to go on to Alberto. Alberto, in Videndum, what does omnichannel mean for you guys, and how has a digital transformation been necessary for you to succeed in that kind of content creation industry?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And I actually voice very much what Titus was saying. We are definitely a smaller organization compared to Currys. We are a brand, that we're not a retailer, and so even our infrastructure and our proximity to the consumer is different. So we had to find our way to start. So I'll share a bit the story like in a summary, but just to give you a bit of context, what do we do is like we have several market leading brands. We have been for a while with market share over 50% in certain categories, but it's a niche industry. And with our products, we cover pretty much the needs of for example, the YouTube food vlogger, and support him up until he becomes the next Steven Spielberg. We can follow up through the journey because we have so many different categories and brands that can really be the companion for them along the journey. Talking about hundreds and hundreds of products, small and bulky, where stocking and availability, particularly in the last few years, have been a dramatic challenge to get, let's say, all the different products across, let's say, the globe. On the other hand, we also have the pandemic and the rise of social networks such as TikTok and Twitch, which for us was pure gold. We have lots of people starting to share content and monetize for it, more importantly, making the community of content creator literally explode. And to just give you a scale to the audience, we went from speaking to a total addressable market of rightly of over 10 million to now over 50 million in just the last couple of years. And most of them are Gen Z. So, the challenge from a B2B manufacturer has been, let's say, huge. And clearly that requires some changes. On the other hand, we also got, let's say, accelerated again by the pandemic, by small independent photographic shops, which used to be our main channel for distribution, starting losing relevance. We've seen lots of consolidation happening, the rise of e-commerce, more of them, let's say, bought by each other and eventually becoming an omnichannel player and try to challenge the likes of Currys and big, let's say, the big boxes retailers. So what we have done is like, clearly we had to embrace the challenge. We did from a lucky position to be the market leader, but at the same time, radically acknowledging that we had to transform ourselves big time, from moving pallets to moving parcels. We initially open up marketplaces, and most people do, enable our website to be transactional. But the thing is, like, probably we did different from other experiences I've seen in my past career. From the very beginning, we've been very, very clear in terms of which information we want to collect and how we want to use them. So rather than waiting to reach a certain scale, which with B2C takes a bit, we started to focus rightly so on the KPIs and the information that we want to deal with. How people search online. There's lots of information that you can use. Which question they are asking to your consumer care, which you didn't have before because you were relying on independent stores. What people buy together, and over time, we introduce product registration and CRM, which incentives they work for them. All this kind of information that we also use to drive innovation for our products. We also open up, which is strange to say for a company that is essentially a multinational company. We also started to sell through the crowdfunding platforms. We launched some ESG products actually on Indiegogo and Kickstarter actually last year. So we started to open up for information and insights. Later, learning actually from the data that we started to analyze, we have also involved in the last couple of years our business model. So we started, particularly for our more professional brands, we understood that it was more important to provide our consumers the best possible convenience when they go, for example, manfrotto.com. In order to do that, we recognized that we had a massive opportunity not to be another retailer in the mix, but rather being, let's say, a collector of all the empowered behind the community of content creators, which is what we've done. So our goal is to drive as much as relevant traffic that we can to the community in various forms. And we implemented the where-to-buy solution, which with selected omnichannel partners in each country to maximize on availability, plus not to make our consumers lose in terms of convenience and choice. We decided to price match daily for following rather than leading, actually with the lowest price of the panel, which is giving basically our, it's making, it was tough, let's say, to bring on because clearly you can expect not everyone to be happy about it, particularly outside. But at the same time, it provides lots of the size of the business overall, also for our partners, was really stronger because we're helping them out in terms of sellout. And in a time where PPC costs are going, are skyrocketing, is definitely appreciated. As a result,
so you took the battle to three fronts. You basically were trying to tick the box as a convenience choice, and then you went to price as well.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Okay.
that was clearly possible because we had a market leading position to a certain extent compared to other smaller companies in our market. So I think all in all, we became more consumer centric, but there is still lots to do. And we are much more in control of our destiny. So just to give an example, we launched a new range of microphones. We started from producing bags and tripods. We went into electronics and mechatronics, and we launched a good range of mics, which really, let's say, at par with Rode or big, let's say, the big brands out there. And you can imagine that without having a go-to-market which was totally in our control, it would have been almost impossible to launch a big scale from the beginning. So that is really putting ourselves more in control of our destiny. And clearly the community size, sales and margin as a consequence are really following.
Thank you. And Titus, I think you have a question you wanted to ask Alberto as well, yeah?
Yeah, just curious, you said you started moving in from the B2B2C to B2C essentially during the last couple of years. I found, well, basically working with all the partners of at Currys, there's a lot of information that they're interested in getting from customers because they don't have that direct relationship. Just curious to see, like, what was the key data that you started getting after selling directly that was particularly useful for either product development or anything else within the business in terms of geography, where to sell, where to do marketing, anything like that?
No, good question, and I think it's on top of the the basic things that you can guess, which were available even before, what people are searching and all how they're interacting with the website. I think we got a great deal of information out of this where to buy solution, because we started seeing actually how our customers which products they buy together. Which consider back to the point of how many SKUs and hundreds of SKUs we have. Understanding in advance which bundles they work best for them is a great deal of information. Help us for, let's say, sharpening out a bit the range and be more relevant. On the other end, I think the wide opener for us was the consumer care element, because from let's say replying to questions escalated by retailers, we all in a sudden started to communicate directly to the consumer. So we got people asking for pre-sale questions, after-sales questions, and leaving reviews. It sounds like basic, but actually for a B2B manufacturer has been wide opening. The eyes are really, really open, and now we end up talking more about rather than say sales and margin, in even a senior level. We start to talk about SERP. We start to talk about the Trustpilot score. So these are the elements that actually start to become like the key KPIs, let's say, on how to drive performance, or let's say how we actually understand the market. So yeah, I think it's there is no a single one, but I think consumer care, having been able to speak to consumer directly, that was the one that really started to make a difference. Product life cycle are definitely longer. But let's say there are already some small innovations that are happening on existing lineup, thanks to the improvements that we've been able to hear from consumers.
Thanks, guys, very much indeed. Katharine, I'm going to come back to you if I may. You heard me and Titus talk about all of that data earlier on, and that's kind of the mountain of data that retailers sometimes have. But how can retailers successfully use that to really understand customer behavior, and why is that important for success? And particularly thinking around the Gen Z population as well. Can you share some insight there? Yeah,
I mean, we could do many webinars on data, let's be honest. Data gives a huge opportunity for all retailers and all businesses generally, I think. And as Titus said, we're really not utilizing what we have available to us. And actually by taking that time and using the resource to really understand your customers, understand what they want, understand their purchasing journey, how they purchase, are they coming through different mediums, are they likely to click on product recommendations if you include them in shipping communication, for example. Really getting down into that detail is going to really help you understand what your customer wants. And I think particularly for the Gen Z generation, they're a digitally native generation, and they actually have huge influence over everyone else. I mean, we've seen Fridays for Change, a huge thing that happened in the Gen Z generation that then has actually kind of catapulted into this amazing campaign to actually make change. And I think we're all influenced by our younger generation. They're seen as almost kind of the cooler generation. Everyone's like, what are they? There's TikTok, there's all these things I don't understand. But when you really start to understand them, that's going to actually help you understand your wider audience as well. And actually, they almost, because they're so digitally native, they are almost less forgiving as well. And they've grown up their whole lives on the internet. They didn't have the days of dial-up where you had to ask your parents to get off the phone so that you could go on the internet to talk to your friends. They don't understand that, you know, they don't understand this as like hang up because they click a button. It's a totally different generation. And actually, when you see them like that, and I think it's something like 30% of the world's population are that generation now, that's a huge buying potential. And they're only going to obviously get older and have more spending power. And if you really understand that generation, it's going to really help you get into those other ones as well and really start to see how you can create that omni-channel experience as well. Because whilst they are digitally native, they still shop in store, and actually they're trying to be more sustainable. So they're probably shopping more secondhand, but they still want to be fashionable. So then there's that challenge as well that opens a whole door of how you can help your brand align with their values while also kind of encouraging them to keep purchasing, but in a more sustainable way.
That second-hand surge has been a real thing, hasn't it? So Vinted, for example, is one app that springs to mind. And I know a friend of mine, she's obsessed with shopping on Vinted, and she's virtually stopped buying brand new clothes and does most of her clothes shopping now on Vinted. And that's just, it seems to have exploded from nowhere in the last couple of years.
Yeah, did you see yesterday they've opened their own logistics arm in France? So now they'll have vintage parcel lockers. So it's really, and you can also, other businesses can use the vintage logistics service now. So it's, yeah, I totally agree. I remember maybe a couple of months ago, my friends were like, sell your stuff on Vinted. Honestly, so easy. This is me who's tried to sell on eBay, Depop, never got any traction. Vinted, honestly, and it's amazing. I think that secondhand potential, and that's where you see also your traditional retailers really come into their own, and you do like reloved and repurposed. Farfetch, for example, you can send stuff back to them, they'll resell it for you. That kind of circularity then just really shows that they are investing in that kind of angle. And I've actually seen some retailers, you can buy new or you can rent as well, which I think is a really interesting proposition, where you can almost have current season and rent it, but also if you want to buy it, you can. But you don't have to part with all that money if you just need it for a wedding, for example, where people often buy a dress and then might not ever wear it again. So yeah, it's a really interesting industry. And I think we're only going to see that get bigger and bigger as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, yeah, so Retail Bulletin production, if you're listening, I think we need to sort a webinar out on data alone. And then clearly we need a webinar on this whole evolution of fashion retail and this surge of the kind of the secondhand world, which I think is to be celebrated. Actually, it's incredible. They've already replied now saying on it. There you go. So look out for one of those from the Retail Bulletin coming soon. Thank you, Katharine. And I'm glad that you mentioned that that kind of rise of the secondhand, because I do think that's a really interesting topic for future discussion. Cool, come back to you shortly. Titus, staying with this data subject, please. A company such as yours, Currys, obviously you've already said you've got tons of data, but what particular data is beneficial for you guys, and how do you apply it in that kind of omni-channel world?
I mean, just basic demographics to start with, you know, who the customer is, how old they are, what like their spending power, what where they're from, that just like gender, that kind of stuff is the stat, like the beginning of it. But their purchase history is particularly important for us, and given that the majority of the UK shops with Currys, that, you know, we can tell a lot about a customer just from having their purchase history available at time of purchase, including what brands they favor, whether they're likely to buy on credit or by insurance, and whether they've rated us positively or not in the past, whether they've had a lot of like calls with customer service, and therefore do we need to address any particular issues. Just to give you an example, like the customer journey for a computer has like 8, in addition to the computer itself, has like 8 additional attached like parts, because you've got like whether you buy it on credit, whether you need like accessories, whether you need the software to buy with it, whether you need insurance, there's quite a few extra little bits that you need to try and sell, and generally like you've only got so much time with the customer, so knowing which ones to try and sell to a customer and not is very important for the understanding the customer journey. And so having that data available, like it is a basically really useful for personalizing the customer journey in store. Now, if you don't have that to hand, the way to do that is basically through questions and trying to understand that through the customer journey. And that's what we've been doing. But as we've basically been progressing through our digital transformation and moving to this core Salesforce like platform, we're getting more and more better information about customers as they enter the stores. And that's basically makes a bit of a step change for the customer, and the customer values that information massively, and so it improves NPS, it improves the customer journey, and it improves sales and total transaction value. And so that's in store. Online, in order to personalize it, you need to have online personalization tools, which is a bit trickier. So like targeted like customer journeys, whether you have certain pop-ups pop up or not, and that particularly for smaller companies is a lot harder to do, because there's quite a bit of investment to have like a tree of different customer journeys depending on the customer profile. But yeah, that's the kind of data that you're that we're interested in, really.
Thank you, sir. And I'll come back to you again shortly as well. Alberto, I'm going to move on to you, if I may. So in my earlier conversations with Katharine, right when we opened the webinar, we talked about that honesty of communication and just being clear with customers, and I guess building trust. At Videndum, get it in my get my teeth in this morning. How are you guys building trust with your customers?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I think is the biggest challenge. This is probably the biggest challenge that we're facing, and the biggest opportunity. We, because our brands are known to be established market leader for the quality and innovation, and clearly that creates expectations in the eye of the consumer, because everything else needs to somehow match that level. And I'm talking about the service that you receive. And this is basically where we know that we have a bit of a disconnection, let's say. Has been improving massively recently, but let's say the level of service of our consumer care, or the fact of being close to the community, is definitely something that that is moving online, and we have not been moving online as fast as the community. But it's something that we're catching up, and this is the challenge. Our goal, how we build trust, our goal here is to be as close and supportive as possible to the community. We are dealing with a community of passionate people that is not just passion for the sake of being passionate. They're not just hobbyists, let's say, in what they're doing. They're recently starting to become, to make content creation as a way of living. They're starting all to actually monetize at unprecedented rate. Think about, creating content for e-commerce. The travel industry, the food industry, selling at distance, all of that is empowered by content creators at the end. And clearly, and so the ways of monetizing are definitely wider than what it used to be for a photographer, which normally would go for a wedding shooting or let's say other kind of activities, but very much more, lesser, let's say, than what it is today. So for us, really, it's like, as we don't want really to be another retailer, we don't just want to compete in the same space, because I think is really well served. We just want to be a partner of this community by inspiring them with the work our ambassadors and customers are doing, how tools to elevate their content creation game, help them maximize their revenue stream. So this is where we recognize that there is a strong connection with our community. So how to do that? For a company that is based in their office, that they don't have any sort of retail physical outlet out there. That's this is the challenge, and this is the real driver behind the transformation. As a consequence, we're starting to invest in content creation by creating ourselves 2 internal content houses. One is actually in Italy, the other one is in New Zealand. And these people are actually bringing in-house expertise that we use to have relevant conversation with our community. So essentially, we are building trust by building peer-to-peer advices, recommendations, which is all powered up by technology. Without technology, let's say, we use Salesforce actually as a CRM. Without that, it would have been impossible to, let's say, empower this conversation, or otherwise we'd probably stop in the first instance. And the CRM really empowers us because it kind of stores all this information, so we can be much more relevant when we talk to them, either from a marketing point of view or when we assist them with our consumer care team, in order to build trust over time. So that's pretty much, let's say, the way we look at trust internally for the long term.
Got it. And I guess that trust thing for the other panelists as well, open question. How do you really measure trust? Are we asking a specific "do you trust us" type question, or is there other mechanics that we're using in our businesses to say, do customers trust us? Open question.
I can probably kick off as for us, trust is a matter of engagement. Is very much linked to the social media world for us, the big communities out there, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. And these are the ones where we kind of measure the engagement in that way. Clearly now we're starting to plug in the CRM, which brings more tangible, let's say, things on top. We can connect, let's say, the social metrics with the business metrics. And that would definitely bring us to let's say, the step 2 of the journey. We are really starting to connect the dots out there.
Thank you. And Titus or Katharine, any tips or intel to share on that word of trust?
Well, I mean, NPS is kind of key there as a whole, but we having a breakdown across the whole journey is very important. I think our basically post-purchase basic questionnaire that we've got, that surprisingly a lot of people complete, and it's quite a few questions. But that gives you really insight into which areas we do well in and not so well in, and in order to fix those areas, particularly around whether it's the issue is delivery, where do customers trust us versus not? Do they trust us on price? Do they trust us on delivery? Do they trust us on basically having the right stock in place? It's trust as a whole, as a brand, is one thing, but being clear as to which part of the journey they trust you on is basically more important, because you know which area to target.
Katharine, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I totally agree on the surveys is a really great way. And it's awesome to hear that, for you guys, you get really good responses. I think with those surveys, it's always a really interesting thing. And I always measure these when I shop. How many surveys do I get sent by a brand? Because some of them, you receive it 7-8 times. I'm like, if I haven't done it the first 4 times, I'm probably not going to fill in your survey. So there's that element as well of being almost quite tactical with them. And also making sure, as obviously Currys has, those questions are actually informative to your business. And it's not kind of almost just a tick box. Would you recommend us to a friend? That's it. What's that actually telling your business, really? You're not getting into, if they say 1, I'm not going to recommend, what does that mean? And if you don't ask further questions, you have no idea what's gone wrong in that. And again, it comes back to that data. And if you can then kind of almost track what went wrong there, great. But often it's very hard, especially if you don't have control of your post-purchase journey. You don't see that data that the carriers get. You have no idea what went wrong during that delivery cycle. You can't see if something was delayed, if you had missed deliveries. It's much harder for the retailer to see that if they don't have access directly to that data. So I think that's also, when it comes to trust, really knowing what happened in the journey. So if something does go wrong, you can very easily help and inform and rectify that as well.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to, well, not always happy. I'm sometimes happy to fill out a survey because I've been on the receiving end of survey data, and I know how useful it can be. But at the same time, if I see a survey is going to be 7, 8, 9 minutes long, it's just like, you're probably not going to get me. So yeah, that survey length I think is key for retailers as well.
I think one thing to add actually is the if you're looking for where you're going wrong, social media is a great place. But I wouldn't use it as a bellwether of whether what your customers think of you, because people tend to only really go to social media when the journey's gone wrong, with the exception of if you're doing, for instance, Trustpilot. If you're being steered towards Trustpilot at the end of every journey, then maybe you get a higher one. Like as an example, Currys a couple of years ago never really steered customers towards Trustpilot. Therefore, the only comments you got there were the negative ones, and we had a pretty poor rating on that. We addressed that by basically getting customers to go to Trustpilot proactively, so you get some of the positive ones as well. Because but in terms of social media, you can really get the journeys that go wrong, and delving a bit deeper into that in terms of the root problems is a good way to find areas to fix.
Yeah, 100%.
And in terms of panelists, we're going to be coming on to our last question in a moment as well. And I'm going to be asking you just to give you a little heads up, just to share a parting words on this subject, anything you want to share with our audience before you leave. But in terms of, I guess, building trust and the survey lengths, anything you want to share with our audience, just giving you some tips there, just be doing that. Audience, you stayed with us. Thank you so much. You've been a very quiet bunch. So you haven't answered questions, but that's okay. We won't be offended. The fact that you stayed with us shows that you're enjoying the content, and hopefully you're getting what you need from it. But if there is any last burning question out there, now is your moment just to ask it as well. So panelists, back to you for your parting words. 45 minutes have already zoomed past this morning. Thank you so much for your participation. Katharine, share some parting words with our audience.
I guess, for me, the key things I would want people to take away from this is communicate, make sure that you're owning that end-to-end journey and actually keeping your customers proactively up to date rather than just reacting when things go wrong. Preempt that and have a kind of plan in place to make that journey not so, I guess, terrible is not the word, but not so happy for your customer. And also use your data, get to know your data and get to really know your customers, and use that to your advantage to really make your journeys pre and post-purchase stand out. And I think that's what's really going to help people thrive in the current climate, especially.
Yeah, and it does seem, I think the word terrible sometimes does apply to some of the experiences that I've definitely had. I think we can all say that as well. And there seems to be no sort of in the middle. It's either a great experience or a terrible experience, and there's definitely a life of extremes out there right now. But the tips you share are great, and thank you so much for your contribution to the panel this morning, and look forward to welcoming you back to a future one. Titus, share some closing words for us.
I mean, I echo Katharine in terms of getting basically the communication, but also I think just deliver on your promises, be it on price, be it on delivery. It's essentially, if I think a lot of research has shown recently from our side that, for instance, same-day delivery is not as important for all customers as much as next day delivery that arrives next day, or 3 to 5 day delivery that arrives 3 to 5 days. So it's basically just that's in terms of delivery. And like price, if you're gonna say that you're basically what can't be beaten on price, then like take the work away from the from the customer and be upfront about it in terms of like do the searching yourself, have a tool that basically has the price comparison versus the other ones, and show that at the point of purchase to say, look, this is what all the other ones are like, and that has a massive impact on trust, because if you do that once or twice, then like essentially that same customer won't be looking elsewhere again, because they know they can trust you on the price.
And that trust thing just keeps coming up, and it's conversely to getting a customer to trust you intrinsically and stay with you, it's easy to lose that trust as well in just a heartbeat, and then they've gone somewhere else forever as well. So that theme has really come out loud and clear this morning. Titus, thank you so much for your contribution this morning, and look forward to welcoming you back to a future panel as well. Alberto, you've got the responsibility of wrapping this thing up. Share some closing words for our webinar.
I think I actually voiced what Katharine and Titus have said, but my only bit is like digital transformations are of course different, but any company is different, and they are never really ending. The important thing is not to be stuck on waiting for to have all your data, to have enough data. It's like if you're clear, let's say, about your purpose, just do it. Crack on. Even a few data points are enough, let's say, to bring some improvements. Don't just wait. Just acting, let's say, at pace is what brings conversation. The organizations actually to the next level.
Thank you, Alberto, and stay cool in that 40-degree heat. I'm quite jealous, actually. I'm kind of a hot at the bed. Yes, stay cool. I'm off to work in Barcelona tomorrow, which is a very acceptable 28. Okay. So we're not quite getting up to where you are. Thank you so much, Katharine, and also to Katharine for your sponsorship from parcelLab as well. I appreciate it. Titus and Alberto, brilliant panel for kicking off today's 2 events. You get a little break now, people. Do come back and join us at 11 o'clock for the second of our webinars today as well. But to our panelists, thank you for your time. And if you're not able to join us again later on, please do remember those dates I talked about at the start of the webinar as well. All information's on theretailbulletin.com. This session's also been recorded, so if you joined halfway or you want to watch it again or refer it to someone else, you'll find it on YouTube or LinkedIn later on. And I'm sure our panelists would love to hear from you direct on LinkedIn. I say I'm not saying that for you, panelists, but yeah, you'll be able to track them down if you think, I wish I'd asked them that and I ran out of time. So you'll be able to find them on LinkedIn as well. For now, see you soon. See you in 43 minutes for our next webinar. Thanks again to our panelists, and have a great morning.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.